Joining us on the line is Bridget Ziegler. She's the mother of three girls, 7, 5, and 2, and a vocal advocate for school choice and parental empowerment. She co-founded the Florida Coalition of School Board Members and Moms for Liberty. Bridget, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about the erosion of parental rights in education. And it's happening on a variety of issues. Obviously, one of the things that you're fighting back against is the sort of woke progressive political agenda that's now being mainlined into schooling for young kids. There's been a lot of focus on the conservative right for years about what's going on college campuses, but obviously what's going on in the elementary and middle and high schools is actually, I think, significantly more dangerous.
I agree. And I think what you just hit on the fact that it's happened and eroded over years, over decades, quite frankly. And a lot more as a result of COVID, I think more and more parents are waking up to the fact of what's transpiring in K-12. But the reality is it's been happening, like I said, for years. And I believe it's a result of the nonpartisan component of school board elections and the fact that they can hide a leftist agenda underneath that. And so that's taken a lot of families by surprise.
So what is the best way for parents to fight back against this sort of stuff? Because obviously we've seen, parents showing up at school board meetings and attempting in Loudoun County, for example, to push the school board, do what they want. The school board basically just throws them out of the room and then does whatever it wants. So what is the best way for parents to fight back on this?
I think there's a multitude of areas in where they need to be aware of what's going on. Showing up at school board meetings is certainly one part of it. You mentioned something that we've seen here in Sarasota County where parents are showing up and certain board members are now infringing upon their right to petition their government and kicking them out or shutting their mics off. And so it comes down to knowing who's elected, knowing who's making these decisions, and also and pushing back and getting the right people elected to those and holding them accountable, because all too often we see people who say the right things, but once they get on the board, they may, convert to quote unquote groupthink. And that's part of what we did when we created the Florida Coalition of School Board Members, is to get like-minded conservative school board members across the state to really stand up to that, because a lot of times you see conservatives on boards, but very seldom do you see them really pushing back. And then that's something that's very important to me, and I think will make a big difference to change the course and course correct for our students.
So, Bridget, how widespread is the progressive political agenda in K through 12? Because what you'll hear a lot from the left is that it's only outliers that are being cited. That when people like Chris Rufo expose what's going on in a particular school district, that this is sort of an outlier case, or you're just picking and choosing, that you're kind of nut picking, you're finding the most nutty places and then pointing them out. How widespread is this stuff?
Is very deeply entrenched. And I would say, really where you have to start to peel back that onion is it starts at professional development. So train the trainer. I know we found that particularly in the last year as it pertains to CRT, but it goes even farther beyond that when we talk about, gender dysphoria, or the component of normalizing some of those areas and early on. And so really it comes down to there are special interest groups, however, wherever they come from, that really push into the professional development and go to these associations and talk to the school board members or the leadership and talk about these great initiatives that it's trained and taught to those teachers. And what happens is it's subtle, and so you don't realize it until you have it pretty deeply entrenched. And so that's where we really need to push back at multiple layers, whether it be certain areas in the textbooks, but also areas that you see in supplemental curriculum. That's a huge area that you'll find it. And then the aspect of where teachers and a lot of educators, I want to make this fairly known, a lot of them didn't get into education to be activists. They went to truly be teachers. But what you'll find is a lot are kind of concerned about coming and speaking out about it. But with the more and more pushback that we're seeing, more teachers are coming forward and feeling more comfortable, because again, that's not what they got into education for. But to answer your question, it is deeply entrenched in multiple areas and very early on, as early as kindergarten.
So we're speaking with Bridget Ziegler. She is the founder of Florida Coalition of School Board Members and Moms for Liberty, and she assisted in creating the Florida Parent Bill of Rights. So obviously right now, one of the big battles in Florida, and we are experiencing it even in the private school system, is what the mask rules should be for kids. So the state has taken the correct scientific position, which is that masking of children is evidence-free, that there really is no evidence that this reduces transmission, and that kids are largely safe from the virus anyway, which is also the scientific position. And yet you've seen a lot of school boards, Palm Beach County being one of them, Broward County being another. A lot of these school boards have basically decided that they're going to defy the state, push down mask mandates anyway. What's been your experience pushing back against that? And how does the parent the parent body break down on this stuff?
So I've been pushing back on this even earlier this time last year. largely because, again, we as school board members have multiple faceted job with the core being education. And so we're trying to get information, which has been limited at best at the beginning. But as you assess, you do a cost benefit analysis. And so for me, our job is education. And when you consider the probability and likelihood of the risk factors for young children getting severely ill, the probability and effectiveness of these cloth masks that are being worn for hours on end, and the impediment that it is for education, particularly early education, because you think about the trajectory and how that can offset it, is very concerning to me. What I've found in the last year, especially as of this recently, is it seems to be much more political, that we have certain board members really trying to take the fight to Governor DeSantis, who has been a staunch supporter of parental rights and really supporting backing science. And so to me, this is playing out much more in a political lens than the effectiveness, and to me, and using our children at the end of the day as pawns. And what concerns me is the long-term implications, particularly when you think about a generation of students that have been deprived. Again, I focus on that early education and the impact it has for efficacy of reading and all of those elements. It can just completely change the trajectory of a student's ability to be successful. So it's a major concern.
That's Bridget Ziegler. She, of course, runs the Florida Coalition of School Board Members and Moms for Liberty. Bridget, how can parents help out?
How can a parent help out? I think really at the end of the day, try to talk to your neighbors, make sure you get people involved, that they know what's happening, because again, you can try to do things. And I understand parents are frustrated right now, speaking to your teacher and your administrator to try to work through it. But at the end of the day, this really comes down to changing the decision maker, the policy makers. I wish it was quicker. I wish there was a quicker way to do it. But I think this has woken up a lot of people. And what we need to do is make sure that every person in the community and neighborhood votes in 2022. In Florida, August is really when those decisions are made for school board members. And make sure you're talking to every member of the community, because the hypocrisy, the lunacy, and the trampling on our rights is vast, not only at the federal level, but certainly also at the local level. And that has huge implications for our future generations.
Well, Bridget Ziegler, really appreciate your time, and thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Well, we've reached the end of today's show, but remember, check out the backstage tonight over at dailywire.com. It'll be me and Jeremy Boring and Michael Knowles and Andrew Clavin and the rest of the cast and crew. Go check that out tonight, and we'll see you here tomorrow with all of the latest news updates. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.